and they really fucking matter. There's like 4 things that matter, and they really fucking matter. I mean, objectively, I mean, you should care, especially you, if you thought about it for 5 fucking minutes.
Welcome to episode 64 of the Outer Voices podcast. We're your hosts, Keem and Esme, and welcoming back Ari yet again.
Yay!
Yay! I get a special intro every time, even if it's not saying I'm special.
You are special.
Back, Ari's joining us on another back-to-back show. We're happy about that. Always happy to have Ari back.
Yep. Still trying to work my way up to that co-host business.
Yes. But yeah, we are back for another episode after another wild couple days, because this is a recording, like an early recording. We're having to record ahead again. But it's been an interesting few days news-wise. We got to witness actual treason.
Yep.
just straight up treason, yo.
Yep. And here growing up, I thought that shit was rare.
It normally is.
Is it really, though?
However, we've gone open, yes.
True. Open treason is very rare.
But, we're operating on new rules now, so...
Yeah.
Yep. New rules where a foreign power that you just happen to have a weird relationship with is more important than your own, like, information agencies.
Someone made the observation that Russia is doing to the U.S. what the U.S. does to other countries.
Oh, I'm absolutely...
And I was like...
Not surprised by any of that. That makes sense.
Like, that's real true, because we manipulate and influence elections to put in a regime that is sympathetic to our goals.
Yep, and damaging to the tides of progressivism.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess turnabout is fair play.
Yep. I mean,
but anyway.
I usually say that in person-to-person stuff, but frankly, like, fuck all these imperialist assholes who are trying to, like, mess with everybody else's shit in this way. And they aren't even doing it for the sake of people so much as, like, well, they're doing it for the sake of some people, but, like, not for the sake of, like, actual layperson's interests so much as just we can get more profit off of this area if we have this kind of government installed there, and they are grateful to us and giving us oil for cheap.
Well, I mean that's the weird thing though. It's even when it's like we go, yeah, it's helping the elite, the big companies and stuff. It's only even helping. It's only even good for certain big companies, like these tariffs and stuff that have been placed on fucking everything.
Yep.
It's fucking with a lot of businesses.
Yeah, that's...
like a lot of huge businesses.
Yeah, that's Trump looking out for specifically his own business interests because he has an American-based company.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're living in a strange world. And speaking of news, do you all want to go into the news?
So before we go into the news, I want to point out that despite the fact that we talked about it, we actually forgot to mention it last week. We hit a actually pretty sweet milestone last week. Episode 63 was the 50th episode of this show since the reboot.
Oh shit, yeah.
Because there were 13 episodes. Episode 14 was the reboot, which means that episode 63 was episode 50 in this current format, the way that we've been doing it.
the current run. So yay, we made it 50 episodes.
Yes.
Considering originally I only made it through 13 without leaving.
Yeah.
50 is big.
So after that brief celebration, you guys can cheer if you like.
Yay!
But after that, the brief celebration, let's move into the news. And I'm not talking about Huey Lewis.
Why not? Everybody should always talk about Huey Lewis.
And the news.
God damn it. Anyway, who wants to go first?
I will go first. All right. So what I wanted to talk about is a news story that came out earlier this week about Democratic Congresspeople from Massachusetts, Senator Edward Markey and Representative Joe Kennedy, both from Massachusetts, both Democrats, are currently working to introduce legislation that would ban the gay and trans panic defenses on the national level.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
Finally some good news.
Finally some good news. Finally some good news. Right. So this is extremely early on in the process. They are working to get this put forth. But for those of you who live under a rock and don't know, in every state except California and Illinois, it is considered, it's a risky move, but it has been considered a legitimate legal defense, like on the grounds that you discovered this thing about them and then you felt threatened by it somehow, like that fact about them made you fear for your safety somehow. And it has been used successfully as a defense for assault and for murder.
Yeah.
And there's only, like I said, the only two states who have banned it at the state level are California and Illinois. And it is still usable as a defense in federal court. And so this legislation that these two senators, Senator Markey and Senator Kennedy, are working on would prevent that from being used as a defense in federal court, and by extension would no longer make it usable at the state level either, presumably, or eventually. Because we know how states get to determine their own things. But yeah, right? This is something that I was appalled to find was still it's something that you don't think about it. And if you do think about it, it's way, way too often put forth as a joke, right? People discuss this humorously. Mm-hmm. And it's what? People are literally using nothing other than people's identities or sexualities to justify violence against them. And that's still a usable legal defense.
Do you know the justification though? You know how justification works? Well, because homosexuality and even being trans is considered sexual deviancy, mm-hmm. Sexual deviancy is usually tied with the idea of rape. Mm-hmm. And rape is one of the things that one of the self-defense things that is allowed where it is okay for deadly force to be used.
I mean,
so it's
I
basically it's basic, and of course deadly force should when it comes to rape,
agree with that,
should be allowed.
That
but
one point.
The issue is, of course, the tying those things together, and the fact that self-defense is not based on what's really happening, but perceptions of what's happening, and anyone can claim any kind of perception.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we need to quit giving actual credence to this idea that gay and trans people are more likely to be rapists.
Because it's kind of like we know the exact opposite.
Yeah, statistically speaking, there are significantly fewer cases amongst like LGBTQIA plus identitied peoples.
Part of the problem is that we're continuing to overly sexualize these identities and these sexualities, right? To where people think that the only relevant reason to mention that you're gay is if you are coming on to somebody. Which, no, it's not. It's just a fact about yourself. Like, you don't...
Yeah.
Like,
it comes up when it comes up.
Yeah, right. Like, I grew up in Ohio. I have 2 dogs. I'm gay. Right? Like, these are just facts about yourself. It's not you being sexually aggressive.
Yeah.
But in any case, and like Keem said, right? It's tied to the perception that people who are gay or people who are trans are deviants, right? And people who are sexual deviants are perceived to be sexually aggressive. And it's, I mean, this is some garbage, but people are, we're working to change it. There's people who are putting forth legislation. I don't hold any real illusions that this has any chance of passing currently, but also like the fact that it is being put forth at this time is at like
it's
this
a big deal.
I have hope. I have a little hope. Little hope. Right, and if there's a possibility that, I don't know, that this might, even if this fails at the federal level, this might get picked up by more states and have more states ban this practice, hopefully, ban this defense and make it so that it's not usable. I don't know. Anyway.
All right. So with that, I'll go into I'll go into my story next because honestly, unfortunately, it's on a similar path,
Oh, no.
but on the opposite side.
Oh no!
Oh, no.
So, guys, what does the B in LGBT stand for?
Babadook. Actually, no. I really hate that joke.
But it's bisexual.
But I couldn't resist. But it's bisexual.
Well, according to Star Parker,
Who the fuck is Star Parker?
a Christian activist.
Oh.
She's a black Christian activist.
Uh-huh.
You guys are wrong. It's not bisexual.
Oh.
It actually stands for bestiality.
Oh, I mean, like, yeah. Definitely.
Animals can't consent. Don't fuck animals.
Yeah.
So
Only during roleplay. You can roleplay as an animal.
Yeah.
This was from the Vocal Point radio show on Tuesday. This activist, Miss Star Parker, is quoted saying, "This is what she said. They keep pushing out this idea, LGBTQ. We did the L and the G, and they legalized marriage for themselves. Now we doing the T, the trans, and this is a big challenge in our society right now. They did the Q, where they're changing all the textbooks, even as low as kindergarten, to reflect that you don't know what you are. You're questioning."
Which is not quite right, but okay. I mean,
that's one of the things that the Q can stand for.
Yeah.
It continues, but notice they skipped over the B, because they skipped over the B apparently. Now, and there are some to say that say this B is going to bombard us with the real vileness in our society if they get what they want, because it's not about bisexuality, but bestiality.
I mean,
she continues, "We do know that there is an agenda, and we do know that there have been discussions about bestiality in their closed doors."
I hate it when I'm discussing things in a door.
So apparently, the big gay meetings that the LGBTQ community has monthly, where they discuss the gay agenda.
Yes.
Damn, I wish those meetings were real. Like, honestly, legitimately.
You guys you guys aren't high enough. You guys aren't high enough in the gay food chain.
Yeah, I've not joined the gay Illuminati yet.
Yeah,
Gotta
you haven't
get
joined
on
the gay
that.
Illuminati, so you just get the memo. Like, you get the email when the new agenda comes out. You don't actually go to the meetings.
Yeah, gotta find somebody to sacrifice in the name of the gay Illuminati so that I can be a part of it.
Right. But yeah, in the meetings, in the secret meetings that control gay society, they're going to push for bestiality. Who knew?
Mm-hmm. Clearly.
It's clearly the logic. I absolutely love the logic because it goes more into, and I didn't read this part, but it goes more into why she says why she believes that the B stands for bestiality. She says that because people keep changing the meaning and meaning of like the Q, like as you guys mentioned, of like it can mean different things, and that they're adding to stuff like that the LGBT community is evolving and changing and like adding that they're going to add bestiality because it's all part of the destruction of our society.
Yeah, because that's absolutely our goal.
Yeah.
I mean, low key though. It is.
I mean, for us radical queers, yeah.
Yes.
But like, there are a lot of gays, lesbians, bisexuals, trans, and like, there are a lot of people under these umbrellas that like live in and benefit from this society. So I fail to see. I fail to see why automatically that's the goal. Other than like, this is unchristian, and anything unchristian is destructive and diseased, and we have to strike at it with the utmost force.
This just blew my mind. Like, it's bad enough. Like, for me as a black guy, it's bad enough to hear anyone saying this dumbass shit. But I feel some extra type of way when it's a black conservative Christian activist. And there are air quotes everywhere on that.
Yeah.
I was actually, and I'm not going to talk about it because I talked about this story instead. I was actually going to, one of my other news stories was another group of conservative black Christian activists at a conference recently called on Republican leaders to silence Maxine Waters.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Because she was encouraging segregation and unchristian behavior.
I mean,
Just
last I checked, it wasn't the place of a like congressperson to promote Christian behavior. But okay,
I mean, but ask any of them,
Yeah.
and it absolutely is.
good.
like these fucking like it bothers me more because it bothers me so much more because I know the role the church plays in the black community, and to have these goddamn morons saying the stupid shit and having their communities believe it. Like, goddamn. Like, you stupid fucking morons.
Yeah.
You coon-ass motherfuckers. Ugh.
But like, there are also plenty of stupid people that aren't so like belligerently terrible at people.
True.
Yep. I've mentioned in the past, like, there being plenty of insane people that we that are like way above all the terrible people that are commonly called insane. And like there's plenty of stupid people that are way above the terrible people we commonly call stupid too. This bit here, these guys, like, this is absolutely a really ill-informed stance, and it's very clear that they're just like twisting things for their own shit, and that's absolutely terrible.
It always gets me as, like, once again, especially with like the black people who do this, like, you do realize that the people you're supporting and putting out there and, you know, caping for, they're not on your side. You're black. Generally, these people you're caping for are white supremacists. You're not, like, what the fuck are you fighting for, to be a house slave? Goddamn. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Now, Ari.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about the Amazon workers' strike, which I believe at the time of airing, this might be a bit late, and at the time of recording, I believe it ended yesterday, the 17th.
Something like that.
Throughout all the Prime Day sales, workers in Europe, it started out in Spain, and I believe it spread to Germany, and I believe there was at least one other country that was involved in it. Unfortunately, I am not the best informed, and I apologize. But, yeah, Amazon working conditions in the States as well as abroad have been, for the last while, incredibly terrible. There are tons of employees in the States that have to pull food stamps because Amazon doesn't pay them enough to feed their families. At the same time, they are encouraged to work like 10-plus hour shifts and heavily discouraged from taking even a bathroom break during that time.
Yeah.
Along with that, they have really, depending on the warehouse you work in, I've heard some warehouses can be better than others, but like if you work in their warehouses, you can, and it sounds like frequently will, be saddled with incredibly unreasonable quotas for you to meet. And if you don't meet them, your job is at risk. So, unfortunately, because because workers in the U.S. don't have the protections and time and energy left to contribute to things like that, we didn't have people striking here. But, however, a way that those of us in the States can contribute to this cause here was by boycotting. I have not even looked at Amazon since July 10th. Even though they've been sending me a bunch of emails and notifications being like, hey, Prime Day deals. They've been trying real hard to get people in on it.
See,
to the point where they've extended Prime Day.
Yeah,
because they didn't make enough money on Prime Day.
Which they had the excuse of being able to say that it was because of some outages that happened on the first day of Prime Day, but almost certainly it was also because of the boycott and workers' strike.
I would say I boycotted the old-fashioned way by being broke as fuck.
Yeah, my spare money, I am a little guilty of tending to put that in Amazon just because I don't have a lot of ways to get out and about to buy things. And
well, see, that's the thing about companies like this, like your Amazons and your Walmart. Unfortunately, they are very useful, and it becomes, especially when you don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
You like, unfortunately, we depend on these stores, these companies.
Yep.
That's why boycotts are tough for me.
I mean, and boycotts, like we can argue all day about whether or not a boycott is even actually effective in any substantial way.
Yeah, and I have certainly, I've said my thing about boycotts. Boycotts, to me, are only effective when they come with something, like when they come with very visible protest, like boycott plus.
Well, boycott, like worldwide boycott plus striking warehouse workers across Europe.
Yeah, like what's happening right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, last episode we talked about Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Amazon actually reminds me, there's a company on there called Work Free.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a recurring thing of like Work Free. They, force their workers to work constantly, whatever. But they try to offset it by basically housing them and signing them into lifetime work contracts, quote unquote.
Yeah, so literal slavery.
So it's literal slavery. And as I was watching that, I was just like, how long? Especially with Amazon, Walmart, Walmart, like I don't see Walmart doing that, but Amazon, like I could totally buy Amazon.
I mean, but at the same time, along the vein of Walmart and Amazon, if it does happen, a portion of the pay is going to come from like some fucking government housing stipend or something, because that's the way those companies work. They don't pay their employees enough to even live, so the government, with through welfare systems, ends up paying for these ends up paying their employees for them instead of demanding that these employees actually get paid by the company they're working for.
And I don't know if you guys have been following this, but that is one of the reasons, combined with his own personal reasons, that the president has been in a very public feud with Bezos.
Huh.
Because
there's not actually a right side with that, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're both shitty, and they're both doing it they're both terrible and doing things for terrible reasons. But one of Trump's big things he's talking about, it was just like, hey, your work, because of the way you treat your workers, they're putting a drain on government resources, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a thing. It's very weird. Like we were talking about Elon Musk earlier, before we were started recording, and Bezos, and now Trump. It's this weird war of the assholes that's going on.
Yeah.
They're all trying to one up and shit on each other.
Yeah, because that's the kind of person that our system glorifies and raises up to leadership positions. This egotistical, self-centered, entrepreneurial asswad that cares about nothing but his own ego and his own bottom line.
And then we're all just caught in the crossfire.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're given all that power. So every little whim of theirs can put thousands of people out of work and on the streets. This is America.
This is America. That song.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to move out of the news and go into our topic segment.
Woot.
And we're going to talk about who's really destroying America. But we'll get to that after a brief musical interlude. Enjoy.
run. Come on, let's make some love on this Persian rug. Arise the mystify. Oh, and I can see the moon in high tide. I can see outside all the other men wait on their steeds to ride. But I wanna make love on your Persian rug. I wanna make love on your Persian rug. Your mind mystifies. I can hear ringing in my ears. You dance around the fire and play your finger chimes. I wanna make love on your Persian rug. I wanna make love on your Persian rug.
And welcome back, everyone. As I said earlier, we are going to discuss who, according to everyone else. Well, not everyone else. According to the older generation, who is really responsible for destroying America.
It's me,
Who is
and it's Ez, and it's Keem, and it's everyone in our age group.
We're going to talk about millennials. And what we're actually going to probably talk more about is the generational conflict between millennials and really the generation below millennials, which kind of just get lumped in, really.
Well, at the same time, like, due to shared values, there's not that much of a difference.
There's not any conflict there.
Right.
Yeah.
Really?
But the conflict aimed at, I think, is what he meant.
Yeah, not conflict between those two groups. I'm talking about the conflict between us.
Yeah, like that awesome meme that went around of like, hey, what are you doing? Teenage rebellion. Awesome. Right. Stick it to those old people, and like they're labeled as millennials and Gen Z. I think I've also seen it labeled with millennials as the younger and Gen X as the older.
Right.
So.
See, and that's
Gen X is the generation right above millennials.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gen X is and
Gen X
here's
is a little split on it, but mostly Gen X seems to have an apolitical stance to things.
Here's the thing.
Insofar as
Gen X. So the conflict is really between the baby boomers and millennials. Absolutely. Gen X is small. Like you don't really hear a lot of like about Gen X because Gen X is small. Like so here's where the conflict begins. Because so with the baby boomers, why they're called baby boomers, because after World War II, everybody was fucking.
Yep. Everybody was booming them babies.
Right. And everybody just created a whole bunch of children. The issue is that, so that next generation, there weren't that many of them. However, you know what they did? They was fucking. Yeah. And they created a whole bunch of children. Mm-hmm. So now millennials and baby boomers, numbers wise, are almost 1 in 1.
Yeah. But
At the risk of being morbid, though, not for much longer.
Yeah, I was about to say similar. The baby boomers are getting up there.
And see, that is the major reason, one of the major reasons for this conflict that's happening. Why everyone is saying millennials are destroying everything. The values of millennials and the baby boomers are so opposed. Like so completely opposed. And the baby boomers realize that their time is running out. Like they have the power. Like there are congressmen. There are leaders, or political leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Like they run the companies. They have all this power. They're where the power and money is centered.
Yeah.
But they realize that they're getting old. Their time is running out. That grip on power is going to go away. And the worst thing that can happen to that is the generation that's going to take those reins has completely opposing ideals.
Yeah. Well, because their ideals were not great.
Yeah, they were straight up shitty.
Yeah, that's their ideals are why we are where we are right now.
Right. And they also have this, because they were coming off that boom after World War II. They have this conflict. See, they talk about millennials. Like millennials, they're so
lazy.
They're lazy and entitled.
Yep.
That's the big thing. They're always entitled. They can't do anything. They're so entitled. Baby boomers are the most entitled motherfuckers ever.
Classic projection.
Yeah.
Because after World War II, the government and society gave their parents everything.
Yeah. Yeah, we still have a functioning welfare system in place. We also had an actually good economy.
Yeah.
Right.
There were jobs for everybody.
There was a GI Bill.
Yep.
Exactly. GI Bill was big.
You could get an education for free. You could support your family on your entry-level job. If you couldn't find an entry-level job, you could, you had a safety net that was there to help you out until you could get a job, which you would eventually.
And they were given the world. Like they were given a world, and they were given the bright quote unquote future. Mm-hmm. And that also, because people also try to compare the protests of now versus the protests of the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. The baby boomer protests. It's like, oh, look what we did. We did this and that. But what a lot of people also don't realize is they had the luxury to protest.
Yeah.
This is not counting black people in the civil rights protest. That was necessity.
Yeah.
But even that, there was some padding there. They did, there was, black GIs, they didn't get as much as everyone else, but they got something. So there was some padding. But they had the luxury.
Being an actual social safety net.
Right. So they had the luxury to protest. They can go out and make these big, at least what they thought over the time, big political statements and be fine. They could bounce back. All the old school hippies and shit and non-protesters, they thought they were doing all this shit and whatever. As soon as that shit was done, they went back to their lives. They went back to their cushy stuff.
Yeah.
And you really can't, you couldn't tell now who those people were.
Yeah.
But the millennial generation in protest, we're not as cushy. Most of our lives, the economy hasn't been great. prices of things have gone way up.
I would say for millennials, I would say most of our adult lives.
Right.
Right? Because things were actually all right through the 90s.
Yeah. We grew up
Things were
with relative comfort.
some of us.
Yeah.
Well, no, see, that's
Definitely
the thing, right?
not
Is
all of us, but-
we're speaking in generalizations.
Right.
If we're going to continue speaking in generalizations, it's not fair of any of us to say, well, my experience was different, so we can't make that generalization.
No, my talk of that is some of us, like I'm not just talking about like black people. There was the 90s also saw the revamping of the welfare system.
Yeah. Right, like, and I mean, like, things were changing in the 90s. The things that were the changes that were happening in the 90s is what led to the economy crashing in 2007.
Yeah.
But for most of the 90s, stuff was still all right.
I would say early to mid 90s, things were all right.
Yeah.
And then people still had their jobs for a while there.
Right.
And then the recession happened.
Things continued
over
to
the course
change.
of the thousands.
Right.
Yeah.
But either way, it is much more difficult for millennials to survive than our parents and our parents' parents, especially our parents' parents. Like it's damn near impossible for most people, like most working millennials, to live on their own.
Yep.
If it wasn't for the fact that the school provides the place I live, I probably wouldn't be living alone.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Is so the millennials. I consider myself. I'm gonna turn 32 this year. I consider myself at the upper end of what it means of like the millennials, right? What's before I go any further, like what's the difference between Gen X and millennials? Where do you draw that line?
I think 80. I think 81. It's the 80s.
It is in the 80s. So the most compelling argument that I've heard about where to draw that line has to do with the technology gap.
True.
Where it's generally considered that millennials are the first generation to have had access to computer technology, like in their home and in their daily lives for the majority of their lives. Mm-hmm. Right. Which is why I consider myself like, I still call myself a millennial, but I kind of like, I'm right there. And that means that like that definition changes based on where you grew up and what kind of family you were from. Right. 'Cause like I have friends who are the same age as me who had computers in their home when they were in kindergarten. But my family didn't get a home computer until I was in middle school and didn't get home internet until I was in high school. And my family, like the house that I grew up in, still had dial-up until I was almost finished with college. Right? So that's the gap. So like I kind of consider myself like on the line just because of when my family adopted the technology. But but what I was saying is like I'm pretty close to the top edge of the millennials, right? I'm in my early 30s. If you go by your definition, millennials are now turning 35 and 36. And what I'm seeing is it's not that the majority of us it's not necessarily that the majority of millennials have to live with other people necessarily, but what I'm seeing is that it's taking us, like the millennials that I know who do live alone are now in their 30s. Yeah. And the millennials who are still in their 20s are living with other people, whether that's at home or with roommates. And it's because it is taking us 10 years longer to get into a financially stable position than it took our parents or the generations before that.
Yeah, that's that actually touches on something I was actually going to bring up. It's just like,
Yeah.
so growing up, there was always the concept of, hey, once you get out of, especially out of college, you're supposed to be off on your own, doing your own thing. You don't go home. Like, you're off in the world doing your own thing.
Yeah.
And if, like, the people who would come home and live with their parents, they were losers. They were failures. And this is what was, like, taught to me. I know this was taught to a lot of people are my age or around our age. Now that I've gotten here, so many more post-college people into their late 20s, some even their early 30s, live with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't afford to live on their own. And like growing up and to, like, once again, the older generation, they're like, well, look at all these millennials, and look at all these millennial failures staying at home with their parents. Not the case. They're out working. They're out doing their thing. They're out trying.
Yeah.
It's just they can't. Like, because everything's more expensive. Everything's a lot harder. The job market is dry as fuck.
Yep.
For a lot of people. A college degree does not mean what it used to mean.
No, it does not.
Yeah. At least not definitely not a bachelor's.
Like, there are jobs paying minimum wage. There are jobs paying $11 and $12, which is basically minimum wage.
I mean, it's not even what's considered a living wage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's well under a living wage.
Right. But there are jobs like paying that little that require a bachelor's degree.
Yes.
At the least. A lot of them require a bachelor's degree plus X plus years of experience in that job that no one's going to have because they're not able to get that type of job because it requires a bachelor's degree plus X years of experience to get the job in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless you are able to access an unpaid internship, which we're not even going to go into how fucked up that is.
Exactly.
I mean, we could though, because the unpaid.
It is really relevant.
It is relevant because who's creating all these unpaid internships? The baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
They are the ones that are responsible for this, right? To where they can, and that goes back to them being entitled, right? Like, they are literally saying to millennials,
Work for experience.
Work for free for me to prove how much you want this, to prove that you're capable of doing this job.
Yeah.
Right? They are literally getting free labor from millennials because they control the access to jobs. So they can put whatever barriers in place that they want. They can demand a bachelor's degree and 5 years of experience and then say, oh, well, if you want experience, do this unpaid internship where you work for me for free.
And then once you do that work, and you get the job that actually pays money, they're going to pay you low despite your experience, quote unquote, because you're at an entry level position.
Yeah.
It's bullshit all around. But then this is the same people that are going, I don't see why millennials are so upset about not making that much money. I don't see why they're protesting for raising the minimum wage. Motherfuckers, you ain't paying us shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're expecting us to work for you. First of all, you're expecting us to work for free, and then after we work for free for a bit, like work for nothing, sorry, you're then gonna pay us peanuts.
I like peanuts, but that's not a great deal.
And then, since you're not paying us, and we're working ourselves to death, because most people our age know, like most people our age I know, there really is no off time. Like, you work constantly every day, usually over the hours you're supposed to work. You take your work home. You get called in to work when it's supposed to be time to rest. Like, your work never stops. Ever.
Mm-hmm.
So you work yourself to the bone. You don't get paid anything. And you wonder why we're upset. And then you also wonder why we, quote unquote, kill every industry.
A lot of industries deserve to die.
It amuses me that baby boomers want to call so many of them, not all of them certainly, but since we're speaking in generalization, so many of them want to deny social safety net programs and deny this and deny that and deny all this stuff on the grounds that the market will, like, the quote unquote the free market will eventually handle it, those damn capitalists, right? But then when consumers, millennials, right, who are active consumers, are refusing to frequent certain businesses and those businesses start failing, it's seen as an act of aggression of some kind on the part of millennials rather than on a failure for these businesses to compete in the free market. Which it is.
Yeah.
These businesses are not doing what they need to do to survive in the market given the current consumer base.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, like, if they actually paid us enough to live off of, we would have the money.
I would still never go to Applebee's.
To give to those. But yeah, I would absolutely never go to Applebee's. I kind of want to burn an Applebee's down. But
to those feds who are listening, Ari is joking.
Or
Joking.
Well, I mean,
joking.
There's no point in even making that thing, because Ari's already on the list. So
what, Kim?
I said there's no point of making that disclaimer. We're already on the list.
Yes, but I'm not yet suspected as a possible domestic terrorist.
Are you?
Not that I know of. I mean,
you've been on this show.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
right.
sure.
Right, and we're real big on that black activism.
Yeah, I'm just your association with me probably has you on a domestic terrorist list.
Yeah, just because, like, being or associating with black people who care about their rights is like clearly a sign that you're a domestic terrorist, according to the FBI.
You're right.
But that's an entirely different conversation. Let's get back to what we were talking about, I guess.
So, speaking of millennials killing things, would you guys like to hear some of the things that millennials are killing now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's always an amusing list.
Beer.
We love beer. That doesn't make any sense.
But millennials are drinking more IPAs and not major domestic beers.
Well, yeah, that's because the major domestic beers aren't any good compared to the other shit.
Let us drink.
We only
drink local craft beer
because we like them.
Because they're delicious. Budweiser is not delicious.
We're also killing
like any port in a storm or whatever, but
also it's not delicious.
Yeah.
now, some of these just come from not having money and not agreeing with stuff. So, of course, there's department stores.
Yeah.
Diamonds.
Fuck diamonds.
Yeah, we could go on a long tangent about diamonds, but I'm sure we've all heard it before.
That was a big one that hit the news I think it was last year. Millennials are killing the diamond industry. Oh my god. Relationships.
Yeah.
Millennials are killing relationships.
Yeah, because we're all trying to be actually emotionally mature adults in the way we comport ourselves one to the other.
And we're not rushing into marriages that are going to be destructive.
Define relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm like the opposite of killing relationships right now.
You know,
Unless you have a very narrow definition of what a relationship is, in which case I'm killing the fuck out
Which
of it.
I'm sure the people who are trying to say we're killing relationships do.
That's true.
yeah,
But,
they mean committed monogamous relationships.
Yeah.
I'm not into monogamy.
Which isn't what I'm looking for, and also, but also, like, I feel like I'm putting a lot of work into my relationships and trying to build them. I'm just prioritizing, like, my friendships and, like, actually having supportive and being supportive and being part of supportive systems for each other.
The funny thing is, especially with the talk about relationships. Like, oh, millennials aren't getting into aren't doing monogamy, and they're not getting married, and like they used to. They're not doing traditional monogamous relationships. I would like to point out that a lot of us watched our parents and our grandparents and all the people and different people around us in those traditional monogamous relationships, and quite a few of us
Saw them fall apart.
Right. Saw how fucking awful that was.
Yeah.
And we're just like, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, we can figure out a different way. I'm not going to say a better way, because I'm not going to, push an agenda of any sort.
Yeah, like, however you want to date and engage in romantic relationships is, like, all on you. It's entirely your choice.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, it seems to be at least, like, the people in this generation go, let us figure out how we want our relationships to be, and not just go with the way we were taught they were supposed to be, because that way may not be the best. But and going on with this, millennials are also killing sex, apparently. And I don't know where they're getting the metrics from.
So I actually have heard about this. In fact, one of my sex bloggers that I follow has written about this for major publications, where there is a thing that's going around that millennials are having less sex, and the people that I've read who have looked into this and who have written on it, basically have come to the conclusion that they've basically come to the following conclusions, which is A, that's not actually true. B, if it is true, like if there are millennials who are having less sex than they would ordinarily have, it's because we are currently living in a world, especially in the United States, where we are not able to shoulder the possible consequences of having PIV sex, right? Like if you potentially get pregnant, abortion is getting harder and harder to access safely, and we're all fucking broke because we're millennials who have been fucked over economically and can't afford to raise a child.
And even, like, without children, the risk of STIs when you don't have health care.
Yeah. The risk of STIs when you don't have health care, when they're fucking the curable STIs, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, are becoming increasingly resistant to the drugs that are used to treat them. Yep. Like these are all valid, extremely valid concerns, right? Like the cost of contracting an STI or getting pregnant is extremely
high right now.
Yeah, it's extremely high right now for most millennials.
Especially proportional to our income.
Yes,
right.
But the conclusion that I've heard most often is that we're having plenty of sex. We're just having sex, a lot of sex that looks different from what baby boomers think sex is, right? We are reinventing sex. We're having a lot more oral. We're having a lot more manual sex. We're having a lot less PIV. Like if we are changing our sexual behaviors, it's just more and more to decenter PIV as the main sex act because that's the one that carries the highest risk of consequences. That could be expensive, prohibitively expensive to deal with.
Yeah, that's the one that most people are the most like uncomfortable with because of all the possibilities associated with it.
Yeah.
And that's why millennials eat ass.
I mean,
and use toys and use their hands and.
But look, you know that's the big thing they always say. Millennials that people say now. Millennials like to eat ass. Like we eat ass and avocado toast. That's it.
because that's all. Well, avocados cost a bit, and we really like them. So that's all we can afford. Avocados, bread, and ass.
Avocados
Ass
and
is
ass.
free as long as you're like charming enough to. As long as you like manage to find somebody willing and consenting to having their ass ate.
Food costs money, but them groceries is free.
Just find somebody. Find somebody who wants to share their groceries with you.
We're also killing the 9 to.
I'm gonna go on one quick more little tangent. I don't eat ass, right? But in the words of the immortal Mac Miller, I just eat pussy. Other people need food.
Beautiful.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Anyway, so go on with your list, Keem.
We're also killing handshakes, apparently.
That's not true.
I mean, we've kind of decentered them. We don't make a big deal out of handshakes like all these old like.
I make a big
folks.
deal out of handshakes.
Really?
Yeah.
And people don't wash their
definitely don't.
hands. I'm sorry, I don't do a lot of handshakes because people don't wash.
Like, I don't worry about having a firm handshake or anything because there's like this respectability bullshit all around it, and I'm just like, I'm not looking to crush your hand when I'm handshaking you, like. But also, I don't know. I prefer hugs. That's my thing.
So another good one, millennials
but not
are killing.
everybody does.
I know.
Millennials are killing taking risks.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because risks can be prohibitively expensive.
Risks can kill us.
Yes.
We are in a situation where we don't have a lot of room for it.
It's hilarious. It's like millennials are killing taking risks. We don't want to die. Jesus. Oh, we're also killing the 9 to 5 workday.
No, baby boomers are killing the 9 to 5 workday because they won't fucking give anybody 9 to 5 jobs.
Yeah. And in addition, they expect people to work way above and beyond the 9 to 5 when they do give them jobs. They're like, you want this job, you work 10-hour workdays.
We're also killing loyalty in general.
No, that is not at all true.
And democracy.
I mean, hashtag life goals. No, that's not true. That's not true. I want real democracy.
Yeah.
Not this bullshit that we've got now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's a lot of ways we can improve on that.
The list goes on and on of everything that, according to everyone else, that millennials are killing. We're basically destroying all of society. Everything is falling apart, and it's our fault.
Yep. Beyond this, one of the most perplexing things I have seen, or before we move on, I mean, one of the most perplexing things I've seen along this vein, it's probably been circulated a lot now. There was an article asking, like, do millennials even eat? Studies show that millennials spend less money eating out and less money on groceries. And it's like, yeah, that should be a really clear sign that we're sitting here starving.
We're not getting food at all.
Yeah, instead of you saying, oh my god, are millennials just not eating? You should be like, oh my god, millennials aren't eating. What are we doing?
Yes.
Good Lord. But now that we've talked about now that we've talked about the things that millennials are doing to destroy society, I want to point out some positives. Millennials are far less likely than their baby boomer counterparts to commit crime. We age out of crime a lot quicker.
Yeah. Because it's immediately like fucking life-destroying consequences.
And also because for all the baby boomers want to call us lazy, millennials as a group, just like we have completely internalized the fact that you're just going to have to bust your ass to get what you want, right? Whereas baby boomers are, like you said, some of the most one of the most entitled generations. If they don't get what they think they deserve immediately, it stands to reason that they would be more willing to take it rather than bust their ass to get it. Whereas millennials all just are like, okay, well, if I want anything at all in my life, I've got to work myself to the bone to get it.
Yeah.
That's and someone I actually had that discussion with someone like last week. Like, millennials are too busy working to commit crimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the laziness that gets fucking pinned on us is pretty clearly just we aren't going above and beyond to provide the millennials with everything or the baby boomers with everything they want, because we have to worry about what we need and want. Like, yeah.
Millennials tend to be more tenacious and goal-oriented. We get shit done.
Yeah. Because we had to learn those skills to survive.
We are, of course, less racist, despite what people think. We're certainly less racist and more progressive in most things.
Yep.
Things like rape and sexual assault are actually way down.
Mm-hmm.
They just get a lot more media coverage now because we care a lot more about them.
Right. Gun violence amongst millennials really low.
Because guns are expensive.
Exactly.
For one.
For one. And also we have had a cultural shift away from violence for the most part.
We tend to spend, like, we tend to be more frugal, and we spend less because we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Millennials are much better for the environment. We have a much smaller pollution footprint.
I bet largely because we consume less.
Right.
Because we have to consume less.
If keeping in mind the millennials that I know, right, like A, we just consume less in general, and B, when we do consume, we're way more likely to keep it in our local economy rather than buying from national brands.
And we also are generally, I want to say, along with the progressivism, we generally tend to be a little more environmentally conscious.
Yes.
We have grown up seeing a lot of the detrimental results of, like, the beginnings of global warming and pollution and landfills overflowing.
Yeah.
And trash floating out in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, we've been growing up with these stories our entire life, and we've been experiencing weather getting crazier and weirder, and yeah, we want that to stop.
It's almost like we were handed a very, very, very shitty situation. We were forced to deal with it.
And now our coping strategies, it turns out, are actually pretty effective on the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, as we start to wind down this segment, and this is not just us talking as millennials. These are facts. Like, you can go check the numbers. Millennials and the generation after us, from the way it seems, they call them zennials now. It's weird.
Yeah. The Gen Z near millennials.
Right. Uh, but that group, like those groups, actually they they have a direction that could be very good for not just society at large, but for the planet and the future of humanity. Despite despite the hundreds of articles saying how millennials are destroying everything, or how we're the bane of America's existence, and how or the world's existence, and we're destroying everything, we're taking everything apart, we're ruining every tradition, and blah blah blah. The fact of the matter is, whether it's true or not, we're actually going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those things that are going away, maybe they should go away. Actually, definitely, a lot of those things should go away.
Yeah.
Because they weren't good in the first place. They just thought they were good. Maybe your traditions and things or whatever that you held on to so tightly for so long probably should go away.
Yep. Right, and like everybody falls into this trap. Like I certainly fall into this trap that like the thinking of, well, I like this thing, therefore it's the best. I think everybody, like, that's just a bias that the majority of people hold.
Yeah.
So, but that's what the baby boomers are doing. The baby boomers are saying to millennials, this thing that I hold dear is going away, and it looks like you're the one who's killing it. And so stop that. Right? Like that's just the blame that they're placing, right? A lot of this stuff, like the market is changing, the economy is changing, culture is changing a lot. Like everybody does this, right? Every generation does this, where every generation has its own priorities, has its own thing. Like most of these companies didn't exist like before the baby boomers came of age, right? Like how long has Applebee's been in existence? How long? Like I guess the diamond industry has been around since the 1800s, like in the state that it's currently in.
Not the 1800s, early 1900s.
Anyway, Queen Victoria, right?
Yeah.
Like the diamond industry has been around for a long time, but it has not. There was not a high priority place
it wasn't really
everyday
a thing.
consumers. It wasn't
Right.
an everyday consumer type thing until Queen Victoria got a diamond engagement ring, and everybody was like, "Oh shit, I want to be like Queen Victoria." I thought it was the late 1800s, but I guess I'm wrong.
Well, I mean that happened, but it still really didn't kick off until the forced diamond scarcity.
Oh yeah.
Then it became a thing.
Anyway, but anyway, the point that I was making is that like baby boomers are freaking out because of these changes, these changes that they're seeing in the economy that are caused in part by millennials' spending choices. But also, these things are going to change. Like, nothing is fixed, right? Everything is changing. Like, there was no guarantee that any of these things were going to be the way that they are forever, right? These are natural changes in the economy, or as natural as anything in an economy can be, right? And baby boomers are just placing the blame on millennials because we're a convenient scapegoat, and also because our choices and our spending power is different from what the baby boomers think or what the baby boomers have.
Yeah,
and the major issue with that conflict is that not only are they perturbed and angry about what's happening and their perceived loss, they're waging a war against, like, straight up, they are waging a war against millennials. They're waging war, they're passing laws, they're doing things that target the way millennials think.
Yeah.
They target the way we practice our lives. They target our values that we have developed.
Yep. They target how we choose to express ourselves as well. Like,
Right.
There's so many things I've seen about, like, men in the 20s, men now. And it's like, wow,
Oh my
this
god!
person has a beard and a man bun and carries themselves in not a strictly like male or not a strictly like hyper masculine heteronormative way. Oh my god, it's the end of society. Like,
It's so hilarious when I see that. Like on the black side of things, they always go, people, men back then or whatever, and they always show like these guys and whatever, like in the '60s and they're whatever, or like suit and ties or whatever. And I was like, can I remind you what y'all's daddies looked like in the '70s during the disco era?
Mm-hmm.
Like these hot pink ass jumpsuits with their chest hair all out.
yeah.
And tight ass clothes, or even in the '80s when y'all's daddies were trying to dress like Prince,
Yeah.
and were androgynous as fuck. Like,
Yep.
what do you like? What's the argument here? Like, you're making shit up. You're making like things. Styles change. Society changes. Different things like happen, and you're not losing something. Like, you're not losing some tradition. It's just things always fucking change.
Yep. Quit
Like, that's
policing what people wear and how they choose to express themselves, because like, yeah, there's no value in that. Like, there's nothing to be gained. There's nothing that you're losing by them just dressing the way they want to. So quit policing the way women dress. Quit policing the way men dress. Quit policing the way all people dress. Quit policing the way people dress.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But like I said, as we wrap this up, because we got to wrap it up right about now. So we're facing a generational conflict that is really of massive proportions. I can't think of in history, like on a generational level, I can recall this big of a like smashing of like people being so vehemently and violently against one another, ever.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be a struggle. Like, man, these baby boomers are not going to give up without a fight. But for the millennials out there, and the ones who are trying to survive, trying to do better, fighting to be something and do something in the world, it's gonna be good. Like, we're going to get through, because honestly, they're going to die.
Yes.
Like, it's a waiting game, guys. Like, we just got to keep fighting until they're out of here. One of it's so funny and so fucked up, and it's kind of the last little aside I'll do. During the election and right after, one of my friends just said, "You know what? As much as as much as I love my family, I really just wish these old people would just die."
Yeah.
It's just like I should. I just wish they would die, because you are making things more difficult. You are purposefully making things more difficult for everyone else. Purposefully.
Yeah.
Just die. And that's as fucked up as that sounds, I couldn't disagree.
I mean, yeah, as shitty as it is to like wish for someone to just go ahead and die, like,
Hurry it up.
There's this desire for the culture to just fucking move on. We've moved on, and of course, for the people who have been around the whole time, it's harder to move on. But, like...
It's time. It's time to cross over.
I mean, maybe not even that. They could just, like, see what happens when they actually listen to what millennials are saying and what we're trying to do. Like,
or just retire. Like,
yeah, if you got the
retire
money
completely. Like, just go away. Like, go get you a house somewhere in Florida, and just wait.
I mean, not everybody can go to Florida. Plus, rising sea levels, it might be ill-advised to go to Florida.
No. I mean, that's why I was suggesting Florida.
Yeah.
Because look, the problem will take care of itself one way or another.
Ah, jeez.
Oh my God! I guess that's really it. That's our little spiel on we millennials and why we're kind of badass.
Yeah.
Remember that. Remember that. I want all of you listeners out there when you start to feel bad about the world and like things are getting you down and whatever. Just remember, you're pretty fucking badass. Statistically, you're pretty badass. You and people like you are making a difference.
Yeah, we're all doing it. We're being the things.
We're all doing it, and many of us are also doing it.
Heyo.
Which gives us a good lead into our sex segment, which will start after some more music. Enjoy.
All the neighborhood kids asked if I could come out to play. I watched the strong winds caress the leaves as the trees began to sway. I wanna bask out in the sun and feel each and every ray. But it's hard to feel like a part of something when you know you're just a stray. Yeah. Let me tell you what it's like to feel like you're not a part of the world going on around you. You feel disconnected and somewhat disrespected by people who feel they're more intelligent than you. Don't blame me, I voted for Osama. Or was that Obama? Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome to the sex segment.
Sex segment. We gonna talk about sex and stuff.
Yes, that is the point of the sex segment.
New theme song.
I don't like that theme song. Try again, Keem.
Not right now, though.
No, not right now. So,
Okay.
Today, like I said, it's a welcome to the sex segment. Today we are expanding on something that I had meant to talk about last week, but then we A, ran out of time, and B, ended up taking the conversation in a different way. So those of you who are playing along at home, remember that last week we talked about oral sex, specifically fellatio or blowjobs, which, for one, I find extremely satisfying to give, but also, despite the fact that a lot of cishet people think that I would not be able to enjoy receiving them, I actually really do, thanks to this wonderful invention called a strap-on. So I had meant to get to this last week, but we're getting to it now, to where we're going to be talking about strap-ons.
We stay strapped, son. We stay strapped. We always carry a strap.
Awkward silence. Yeah, so those of you who have been following along with me since we started this, will probably be unsurprised to find out that I pretty frequently am shooting for a more masculine expression than a lot of people would expect from me. And I guess even before I started doing that, wearing a strap-on and using that for sex things was always really, I don't know, really satisfying for me. I really enjoy it. It feels really good. That's sort of been something that I've been doing for a while, and for a long time, that I used specifically for pegging, which, for those of you who don't know, is usually a word that's used to refer to the act of a woman fucking a man with a strap on, because it's kind of a very cishet definition, but that's where it comes from. It was invented to describe that specific act, and I'm like, fine, whatever. But in recent years, I have also gotten so much satisfaction out of getting a blowjob while I'm wearing my strap-on. So for those,
I was like, explain to our listeners how that would work.
I mean, it works just like a regular. It works just like a blowjob on a biocock.
Yep.
Except without the direct physical sensation.
The return of biocock.
Yes. No, I use that all the time. Right. So
Sorry.
those of you who have a biopenis, tell us what is so satisfying about receiving a blowjob. What are the things that go into that being satisfying? The short version, since we talked about it all last week.
I mean, obviously it feels really nice.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like,
There's also absolutely the mental stimulation of somebody being there.
Yes. Keem mentioned something specifically last week with regards to your two partners.
I did?
You did.
What did I mention?
Something about how it looks.
Oh, yeah, it looks awesome.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I don't remember much about last week because I may have blacked out.
That happens when we start talking about blowjobs.
Yeah.
Right. So it's true that when I'm wearing a strap on, I don't receive the same kind of physical sensations that somebody with a biocock gets from this. Although there's no physical sensation, right? There's the base of the dildo presses into things. Notably, I typically try to arrange it. I don't want it to mash directly onto my clit, but I'll position it so the bottom edge of the base of the dildo is at the top of my clit, and it actually feels really good. There's access there for whoever is doing this blowjob to do other hand stuff also. Mm-hmm. But so it's not that there's no sensation. It's just a different kind of sensation because there's no nerves in this penis that I have strapped to myself. But the rest of it is still there, right? Like the mental stimulation of, yes, I'm having sex with this person. The like visual stimulation, because it's fucking hot, right? It is fucking hot to watch somebody suck you off. It's amazing. And really, and like, if you're into it, like there can be a power dynamic that happens, which I have frequently done, to where like I particularly like to receive blowjobs standing up, so that whoever is sucking me has to kneel in order to do that.
I need more of those.
I know,
I don't do
right?
that enough. Sorry, I really don't do that enough, and that's awesome.
It's so good, right? Like even if you don't explicitly have a DS dynamic, like it is like that can be a power play thing. It can be like you can receive that kind of stimulation. It just feels like it's so cool, right? And all of these things, right? Like everything except the like explicitly physical sensations, I get exactly the same as like, or I mean, I get similarly too, right? I can't say it exactly the same because nobody's experiences are exactly the same as anybody else's, right? But I get these sensations and these like this kind of stimulation like in a similar way as somebody who has a biocock, right? Like you can't just say, well, what do you even get out of it? Because there's so much to get out of it. Oh my God, it's so good.
There's a bunch of layers to basically any sex act.
Exactly.
Like, that's the whole point.
Exactly. Right?
Sex,
and like,
sex is kind of like Shrek. It has layers.
like an onion.
Like an onion, like Shrek.
I just wanted people's minds to, while they're thinking about sex, think about Shrek for a moment, because just wanted to put that image into somebody's head.
Yeah.
Never forget that Fiona is bisexual.
Ez is suffering right now is what's happening.
I like that you can hear that over Skype. Like, guys, for those of you who are listening to this podcast, we don't have any video on right now. Keem just heard my uncomfortable, like my discomfort with this pun, like over an audio connection.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
Like I could hear a look. Like I could hear a look.
Yes. There was definitely a look. I didn't even look at Ari. I just looked up, pleading to the heavens to deliver me from this fate.
I'm not going to go further with it. Anyway. But yeah, so like, I mean, that's basically what it is. Like, there's this whole thing. Also, if I want to get extra into it, I do have an insertable, like strapless strap-on, double-ended dildo. Like, I feel like I always have to specify so many layers of stuff when I start talking about these, because people who watch like cishet porn, like mainstream porn, like you say double-ended dildo, and what do you immediately think of? One of those long purple monstrosities.
Exactly, like one of the long purple jelly monstrosities that like are kind of floppy, and like why would you even like? I mean, I hear some people enjoy them, but also that seems like way more trouble than it's worth. When I talk about a double-ended dildo, I'm talking about a strapless strap-on style thing where it's got like a cock on one side and a bulb on the other side, and I can insert that, and then I do get direct stimulation of my genitals from a blowjob, right? Like. That, because it does, like, the way the bulb is shaped, like, as I'm receiving this blowjob, and, like, whoever is giving it to me, like, pulls back on the cock, like, it pulls against my G-spot, and it just feels fucking great. But in any case, what I was going to before we went on this terrible pun tangent was, like, this is... I mean, there's I obviously have gender feels that go along with this too, right? Like I am non-binary. I often am kind of hunting for a more masculine, like, expression, and this is one good way to do it. Especially like there's words that come along with it, right? Like I specifically like when we're when I have anything with my strap on, like the words that I use are the same words that you would use for somebody that has a biological penis, right? Like it's not a strap on, it's not a dildo, it's my cock. I don't do pegging because of the implications of that. I just fuck you, right? Like it's not pegging where there doesn't need to be a special word for it because it's not an artificial thing that I'm doing. I just am fucking you because that's what I'm doing. Right. I don't feel like I need to specify. Some people do feel like they need to specify. It's a strap-on blowjob. No, it's just a blowjob. Right. And that is really validating for me. Mm-hmm. When you find a partner that gets it. I've had so many conversations. in the last couple of weeks about like strap-ons and dildos and all this stuff. And, like I'm subscribed to all this like strap-on sex stuff on things on FET. And I don't remember what I have. I probably have pegging listed as one of my kinks, and that I need to change that because don't call it pegging. That feels really invalidating. But I've had so many conversations with like het dudes who are like, but you like pegging? I see that you like pegging. And I'm like, no, I like fucking. Right. But, I'm getting like crickets from both of you guys.
I mean, this is your important stuff. So
I know. I just feel like y'all are just kind of sitting there like quietly. It's like I'm talking into the void. It's weird.
What I was gonna say is
we know less about strap-ons and all the deals around it.
Oh, that's a shame.
Do you know the one thing besides the whatever dumbness thing that's a work on? Do you want to know my one issue with it? With it specifically with you? What word don't I like?
Oh, you hate the word cock.
I hate the word cock.
That's a bummer because that's the word that I use for my parts.
And my God,
one of my favorites.
You've infected me. You've infected me. And I'm gonna say this because I don't say cock. I never say cock. I don't like the word cock. I'd be damned if the last time I had sex, I used that word and it fucking shook me.
Oh.
I said it, and in my head I went, no, that's not right. That's not right. You've infected me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Dick for me is typically more of the default, but also, like, I like cock. I like that word.
Here's my thing with dick versus cock, and it's just my personal thing, and that's fine. Like, I'll say dick if you request it most of the time, like, for your parts. But also, like, I have this weird thing where, like, dick is to me a funny word, right? Like, if I'm talking to, like, if somebody's being like a jerk, I'll say, don't be a dick, right? Like, that's...
But a cock is also a chicken.
Have you ever actually called a chicken a cock?
Yes.
Except for
there's your problem.
Except for the sake of making a double entendre?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially when you go down to the cock of the walk.
Mm-hmm.
See.
Gotta eat that cock.
See, I don't see. That's see. I can't. Then there needs to be a better word for penis.
Think up a word. Start using it.
Everything just sounds so. Ugh.
It's just mushmangly.
I want a word. I want a word to make my penis feel beautiful.
My lepidop.
Lepidot. What?
I don't know.
CJ's just making shit up.
Yeah, I'm just trying random words out. That's how you make words. You try them out.
Like cock and dick. Like, I'm sorry, and this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But cock and dick they're so hard. Like words for penis are either harsh or silly.
Or both.
Like Willie.
Or both.
Willie is
Like
silly.
Willie. That's my pangolane. Like,
I mean, like, words
My
for
Kimmy.
vulvas are not any better, though.
That's true.
yeah, but I mean, vulva sounds nice.
I mean-
Vagina sounds like a nice lady I would hang out with. Like a fancy lady.
My Aunt Vagina.
Y'all are weird.
Anyway, let's get back to the actual topic, because that's what's important for this next segment.
Yeah, so I guess, like, I mean, I have pretty much said what I need to say, right? Which is that, like, strap-ons are great for receiving blowjobs too.
Excellent.
Oh, really fast, right? If you like receiving if you wear a strap-on and like receiving blowjobs and want to like help contribute to the experience, first off, like, I have gender feels about this, but also if you want to contribute to the experience of the person who's giving you a blowjob, check out Vic's Skin. Vic's Skin dildos from Vixen Creations have a like pretty realistic texture. I mean, they're not 100% realistic. They're still a little firmer than a biological cock, but they are dual density. So there's like a firm core on the inside and then like a squishy outer layer. So it feels pretty darn realistic. And yeah, it's so good.
So you get that good mouth feel.
Yeah, it's so good. It's not gonna lie, I incorporate like dildo blowjobs into my masturbation just like pretty regularly. Where I'm just like, I just want a cock in my throat right now.
I cannot say I blame you.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Anyway, that is one really good option, especially if you're looking for something for like that's pretty realistic. If you're not looking for something that's terribly realistic, there's a couple of models of the Vic's Skin Mustang that come in. It's still a representational shape, like it looks like a penis, but they come in like hot pink and tie-dye colors. Really want the tie-dye one.
Yeah,
I
you
really
can
want
have
the
a fantasy dick.
I really want the tie-dye one just because it's fucking cool.
There,
No, I-
there's got to be some like fantasy strap-ons on like Bad Dragon, right? It's got to
No,
be.
like all of
I
Bad
imagine.
Dragon's stuff is like harness compatible as long as you have an O-ring that's big enough.
Yeah,
Which
so somebody-
that's the caveat. You have to have an O-ring that's big enough. But I think that they all have a big enough base on them that makes them harness compatible.
be interesting for some
don't quote
like
me on it. I might be wrong.
that could be interesting for some nice fantasy role play.
Yeah,
Yeah, if anybody wants to be a dragon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
wanna
I
be a
know that
dragon.
they do
werewolf.
for those of you who have biococks who want to role play. They do
That's the
offer
best word ever. Sorry.
They do offer fantasy sheaths.
Yeah.
They have a couple of them.
I've always okay.
So Keem could put a sheath on and be a dragon.
Are,
He could have a dragon cock.
are there like things in a like sheath that like I've always had questions about sheaths.
My understanding of it, having never actually handled one in person, my understanding of it is it depends on the manufacturer.
Because like I would like to feel something if I'm wearing a sheath.
What?
I
That's
mean,
not allowed.
My assumption is as long as it like fit you well, like wasn't too open for you to be like rubbing against the sides, that it wouldn't be incredibly unlike just using a condom for sex.
No, they're a lot thicker.
Yeah, I know that they're a lot thicker, but you still get like that friction against it on
Yeah.
the inside.
Yeah.
Like,
But I do know that some manufacturers do have ones that have texture on the inside too.
Yeah, I would need something with texture on the inside.
and you would also probably still feel like it getting squeezed on when you put it in something.
Yeah. In any case, any other thoughts concerns.
I want somebody. I
questions,
want somebody to
ideas?
come on the show and talk to us about sheets. 'Cause I don't know about sheets.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners, if you know anything about sheets, come talk to us.
Can you stop saying it like that? It's weird.
Sheets.
Sheets. Sheets.
Weirdo.
I mean,
Anyway.
yeah, of course I'm a weirdo. That's why we have this show, and that's why you put up with me.
Something like that. Anyway.
In
So
any
yeah,
case-
that's what I had to say. That's what I had to say.
Well, since I don't really have anything to add to this conversation, and I don't think Ari has anything much to add to this conversation.
I certainly don't have experiences to contribute. Unfortunately, I should probably find somebody who's into that business that is compatible with me. Frankly, I need to find somebody who's compatible with me. Period. I've been on kind of a dry spell.
So, listeners, Ari's on a dry spell. So
I am not asking for our listeners to come and get me laid.
I am not like you are not asking for your listeners to try to get you laid. I am asking.
No.
The new secret goal to this podcast: getting guests and co-hosts laid, consensually, of course, because we're not savages.
I mean, we could just like have parties or whatever, but like, nah, I'm not putting out a radio request for someone to have sex with me. that just seems real pathetic.
Look, it's the request line. Come on down.
Nah.
Come down so you can get down.
Come down. So you can
Anyway.
come down.
Anyway.
Yes. Back to things that don't embarrass me.
Don't embarrass people, Keen. Don't embarrass people non-consensually.
I'm sorry. How do you embarrass someone consensually?
You need to talk to more kinky people.
Frankly, I feel like you need to talk to Lavi. Because that's kind of in her wheelhouse.
Look, but there's a difference between humiliation and embarrassment, right?
I mean, but both can be played with consensually.
Like, okay, so we need to have another sex segment on like humiliation. Then.
Full disclosure, I don't play with either of them on either side of the slash, so I would have very little to contribute.
Yeah, we would need you to lead it and possibly to bring Lavi on.
Lavi needs to come back on anyway because we lost the whole show with them before.
Yep. We need to get the furry topic segment revamped.
We do.
Yeah.
Anyway, look forward to that in the future if we can ever get a recording date. Anyway, seems like this will be the end of our show. Thank you for listening and coming in and enjoying things with us. I hope you enjoyed it. A special thanks to Ari yet again for joining us. Special thanks to the Living Room Leftists for our theme song, as always, and special thanks to our musical guests for providing music for this episode. Come join us talk to us on Discord. We'd love to come talk to you. We'll have you on the show if you want. We'll play your music if you want. Just come talk to us. We enjoy it. Look into the future. Look for the future for big things happening once we get off our asses.
That's a big if.
We might have a
big
Patreon
is.
soon.
We may have, we have some ideas for things to be on that once that's up. So stay tuned.
Yep, things may be changing.
With all that being said, this has been Keem and Esme and Ari, and we are out.
But there are these things that matter, and they really fucking matter. There's like 4 things that matter, and they really fucking matter. I mean, objectively, I mean, you should care, especially you, if you thought about it for 5 fucking minutes.